What if I told you that the most effective and time-tested financial plan ever written is not a modern bestseller by some Wall Street guru, but an ancient book that most people have on their shelves right now? The Bible contains over 2,300 verses about money, wealth, and possessions. It is a treasure map to financial freedom, yet its most powerful lessons are often overlooked or misunderstood. Today, I am going to distill thousands of years of divine wisdom into 7 proven money lessons from the Bible. These are not just spiritual platitudes. These are the exact, practical principles that took me from being a broke seminary student with $30,000 in debt to becoming a multimillionaire who is now able to fund kingdom work around the globe. These 7 lessons are the blueprint for building wealth that lasts. Grace and peace, friends. I'm Pastor Daniel Bridges, and before we dive deeper, I'm on a mission to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year, so I can spread biblical wisdom about wealth, faith, and legacy to even more people. If you believe this wisdom should be shared, please hit that subscribe button and join this growing community of kingdom builders. You can also become a channel member for exclusive content and deeper teachings. Now, I have a question for you, and I want you to comment below. Which of the Bible's teachings on money has had the biggest impact on your life so far? I read every comment, and I want to hear your thoughts. There is a dangerous myth that has crept into the church. It is the idea that money is inherently evil, and that being poor is somehow a sign of spiritual superiority. This could not be further from the truth. The Bible does not say that money is the root of all evil. It says the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Money is simply a tool. It is a resource. And God is intensely interested in how we manage that resource. Why? Because how we handle our money is a direct reflection of what is in our hearts. It reveals our priorities, our fears, our level of faith, and our understanding of stewardship. God does not want you to be poor. Poverty is a curse. The Bible is filled with promises of prosperity, abundance, and blessing for those who follow God's principles. But this is not the get-rich-quick prosperity gospel that promises a Lexus if you just have enough faith. This is a call to a disciplined, wise, and faithful approach to finances that leads to sustainable, generational wealth. It is about building a financial house on the rock of God's Word, not on the sand of fleeting worldly trends. I have seen both sides of this coin. I have seen the emptiness of worldly wealth during my time on Wall Street, where I saw men with unimaginable riches who were spiritually and morally bankrupt. And I have seen the needless struggle of sincere Christians who love God, but are trapped in a cycle of debt and financial stress because they have never been taught God's practical economic principles. The sweet spot, the place of true wealth, is where spiritual devotion meets financial wisdom. It is where your love for God is expressed through your skillful management of His resources. These 7 lessons are the pillars of that financial wisdom. They are timeless, they are proven, and they will work for you if you apply them. Let's begin with the foundational lesson, the one upon which all others are built. Lesson number 1 is the ownership principle. This is found in Psalm 24, verse 1. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. This is the starting point for all biblical finance. You are not the owner of your money. God is. You are not the owner of your house, your car, or your investments. God is. You are a steward. You are a manager. You have been entrusted with a portion of the king's assets, and you will one day give an account for how you managed them. When you truly grasp this principle, it changes everything. The pressure to perform is lifted. The fear of loss is diminished. You are no longer trying to build your own little kingdom. You are a trusted manager building the kingdom of God. Every financial decision is no longer, what do I want? But rather, Lord, what do you want me to do with your resources? This shift from owner to steward is the most important financial decision you will ever make. I remember when I was on Wall Street, I viewed my portfolio as mine. I took the credit for the wins, and I felt the full weight of the losses. The stress was immense. The day I truly surrendered it all to God, the day I looked at my screen and said, Lord, this is all yours. I am just managing it for you. A literal weight lifted from my shoulders. My decisions became clearer, less emotional, and ultimately more profitable, because they were no longer driven by ego or fear. They were driven by a simple desire to be a faithful manager for the true owner. This principle is the antidote to financial anxiety. When you believe you are the owner, you carry the full weight of every market fluctuation, every economic downturn, and every unexpected expense. But when you know you are the steward, you can do your best with what you have been given. And then you can sleep at night, trusting that the true owner is ultimately in control. This is the foundation of financial peace. Lesson number 2 is the first fruits principle, also known as the tithe. This is perhaps the most controversial, yet most powerful financial principle in the Bible. In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 9 and 10, we are commanded, "Honor the Lord with your wealth, and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine." The tithe, which means a tenth, is not the leftovers. It is not what you give after all your bills are paid. It is the first and the best. It is the first 10% of your gross income given back to God through your local church as an act of worship and obedience. This is not a tip to God, it is an act of acknowledging His ownership over everything. When you tithe, you are declaring that God is your number one priority. And God makes an astonishing promise to those who obey this principle. He will open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing you cannot contain. I have seen this proven true in my own life and in the lives of countless others. Tithing is the ultimate act of faith, and it unlocks a level of financial blessing that is simply unavailable to those who withhold from God. I know this is a stumbling block for many. You might be thinking, "Pastor, I can barely pay my bills. How can I give away 10%? That is the logic of the world. The logic of the kingdom is that your 90% with God's blessing will go further than 100% without it. I have coached hundreds of families out of debt, and the story is always the same. The moment they commit to tithing, even when it seems impossible, is the moment the supernatural breakthrough begins. It is the ultimate test of where your trust truly lies, in your own ability to manage your money or in God's ability to provide for you. I once coached a young couple who were drowning in debt. They wanted to get their finances in order, but when I mentioned the tithe, they balked. "We can't afford to give away 10%, they said. I challenged them to try it for just 3 months. I told them, "If you are worse off after 3 months of faithfully tithing, I will personally give you the money back." They reluctantly agreed. The first month was terrifying for them, but by the second month, something shifted. The husband got an unexpected bonus at work. They found a billing error that resulted in a significant refund. By the end of the third month, they had not only paid all their bills, but they had more margin than they had ever had before. They came to me with tears in their eyes, not because of the money, but because they had experienced the faithfulness of God firsthand. Tithing is not about God needing your money. It is about you needing to trust God. Lesson number 3 is the debt-free principle. The Bible is crystal clear about the dangers of debt. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7 states plainly, "The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender." Debt is a form of modern-day slavery. It mortgages your future. It steals your peace. It limits your ability to be generous and to take advantage of opportunities. While the Bible does not forbid all borrowing, it consistently warns against it and points towards a life of freedom. The goal for every believer should be to become completely debt-free. This means avoiding consumer debt like the plague. It means paying off your credit cards every month. It means creating a plan to aggressively pay down your student loans, car loans, even your mortgage. Being debt-free is not a financial strategy. It is a spiritual state of being. It is a state of freedom that allows you to serve God with your whole heart and your whole income. Think about it. When you have no car payment, no student loan payment, no credit card payment, you have options. You can afford to take a lower-paying job that is more fulfilling. You can afford to take a mission trip. You can afford to give extravagantly to a need that God places on your heart. Debt is a cage. It limits your ability to say yes to God. Becoming debt-free is not just a financial goal. It is a spiritual imperative for anyone who wants to be fully available for kingdom work. Debt is a spiritual stronghold. It whispers lies to you in the middle of the night. It tells you that you are a failure. It tells you that you will never be free. It keeps your focus on your lack, not on God's abundance. Breaking free from debt is an act of spiritual warfare. It is a declaration that you will no longer be a slave to any master but Jesus Christ. The journey out of debt is not easy, but the freedom on the other side is worth every sacrifice. Lesson number 4 is the planning principle. So many people wander through their financial lives with no plan, no budget, and no goals. They are simply reacting to circumstances. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 5 gives us this wisdom. "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." Diligence without a plan is just being busy. A budget is not a financial straitjacket. It is a tool of intentionality. It is you telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. A written financial plan with clear goals for saving, giving, and investing is your roadmap to abundance. It takes time and effort to create, but the diligent planner will surely arrive at the destination of wealth, while the hasty and unplanned will find themselves in the land of poverty. A budget is simply a plan for your money. The simplest way to start is with a zero-based budget. At the beginning of each month, you list your total income. Then you list every single expense, including giving and saving. Your income minus your expenses should equal zero. Every dollar has a name and a job before the month even begins. This is not restriction, it is empowerment. It is the difference between being the captain of your financial ship, steering it with purpose, versus being a passenger on a raft, tossed about by the waves of circumstance. I am always amazed at how much time people will spend planning a 2-week vacation, but how little time they will spend planning their financial future. A budget is your financial vacation plan. It is you deciding where you want to go and how you are going to get there. Without a plan, you will just drift. And those who drift rarely end up in a desirable destination. A written budget is the first and most important step towards taking control of your financial life. Lesson number 5 is the saving and investing principle, which I call the Joseph and Solomon principle. In the story of Joseph in Genesis, he advises Pharaoh to save 20% of the harvest during the 7 years of plenty to prepare for the 7 years of famine. This is a powerful lesson in saving for the future, in creating an emergency fund, and in living with margin. But the Bible does not just tell us to save, it tells us to invest. King Solomon, the wisest investor in history, wrote in Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verse 2, "Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you do not know what disaster may happen on earth." This is a clear command to diversify our investments. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. A wise steward saves consistently and invests prudently for the long term. This is how you build the kind of wealth that can weather any economic storm. Let me be clear, saving and investing are two different things. Saving is for short-term goals and emergencies, and it is usually done in a safe, easily accessible account. Investing is for long-term wealth creation, and it involves taking calculated risks to allow your money to grow. The simplest way to start investing is through a low-cost, broad-market index fund, like an S&P 500 fund. By doing this, you become a part owner in 500 of America's largest companies. You are participating in the growth of the economy. This is not gambling. It is wise, long-term stewardship. The world has made investing seem complicated and scary. But the principle is simple. When you invest, you are buying a small piece of a business. If that business does well, your piece becomes more valuable. The key is to not try to pick individual winners and losers. That is a fool's game. Instead, by buying a broad market index fund, you are betting on the long-term growth and ingenuity of the economy as a whole. This is a patient, disciplined approach that has proven to be the most effective way for the average person to build significant wealth over time. Lesson number 6 is the work and rest principle. The Bible has no room for laziness. Proverbs chapter 6 verse 6 tells us to go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways, and be wise. We are created to work, to be productive, to use our talents to create value in the world. Hard, honest work is a form of worship, but the Bible also commands us to rest. The Sabbath principle is not just about one day a week. It is about building rhythms of rest and rejuvenation into our lives. A person who works all the time will eventually burn out and become unproductive. A person who rests all the time will become lazy and poor. The path to sustainable success is found in the divine rhythm of diligent work and deliberate rest. This is how you maintain your health, your relationships, and your long-term productivity. In our hustle culture, rest is seen as a weakness. In the kingdom, it is an act of faith. It is a declaration that you trust God to sustain you, and that your success does not depend entirely on your own effort. A well-rested mind is more creative. A well-rested body is more productive. The Sabbath is not a religious rule. It is a divine gift, a strategic advantage for those who are wise enough to take it. I have seen so many brilliant, ambitious people burn out because they did not understand this principle. They believed the lie that more hours always equals more success. But there is a point of diminishing returns. A tired mind makes poor decisions. A stressed body is prone to sickness. God, in His infinite wisdom, built a rhythm of rest into the fabric of creation because He knows how we are designed to function best. Observing the Sabbath is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of wisdom. It is a declaration that you trust God enough to step off the hamster wheel and be refreshed by Him. Finally, we come to lesson number 7, the generational principle. This is what separates biblical wealth from worldly riches. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22 says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." God's plan for your finances is not just about your comfort in this lifetime. It is about building a legacy. It is about creating a river of blessing that will flow to your children, your grandchildren, and beyond. This requires a radical shift in perspective. You are not just working for a paycheck. You are building generational wealth. You are not just saving for retirement. You are creating a financial foundation for your family for 100 years to come. This long-term vision will change your daily decisions. You will stop wasting money on trivial things and start investing in assets that will grow and last. This does not mean you cannot enjoy your life, but it does mean that your decisions are weighted towards the future. You might choose to drive a reliable used car instead of a brand new luxury car, so you can invest the difference. You might choose to build a business that can be passed down to your children, rather than just climbing the corporate ladder for a bigger paycheck. This principle transforms your financial life from a sprint into a multi-generational marathon. When you start thinking in terms of generations, your daily choices change. You start thinking about building assets, not just earning income. You start thinking about creating systems and businesses that can outlast you. You start having conversations with your children about stewardship and wealth creation. This is the ultimate goal of biblical finance, to become a river of blessing, not a reservoir. A reservoir holds water for itself. A river flows and brings life to everything it touches. God is calling you to be a river. These 7 principles, ownership, first fruits, debt-free, planning, saving and investing, work and rest, and generational, are the unshakable pillars of a financial life that honors God and builds lasting wealth. They are not complicated, but they require discipline. They are not a quick fix, but they are a sure foundation. I know that for some of you, this seems overwhelming. You might be thinking, "Pastor, I am drowning in debt. How can I even think about leaving an inheritance?" Or, "I am living paycheck to paycheck. How can I possibly tithe and save?" I understand. I have been there. The answer is that you start where you are, with one small step of obedience. You do not have to do all 7 things perfectly overnight. You start with 1. Maybe you start by creating your very first written budget. That is an act of obedience to the planning principle. Maybe you start by setting up an automatic transfer of just $25 a month to a savings account. That is an act of obedience to the saving principle. Maybe you commit to giving just 1% of your income this month with a plan to increase it over time. That is an act of obedience to the first fruits principle. The key is to start. Small acts of obedience compounded over time will lead to massive results. So here is my challenge to you. I want you to choose one of these 7 lessons to focus on this week, just one. If you are struggling with financial stress, I want you to focus on the ownership principle. Every time you feel anxious about money this week, I want you to stop and pray, "Lord, you are the owner. I am the steward. This is your problem, not just mine. I trust you." If you have never tithed before, I want you to take a step of faith and obey the first fruits principle. This Sunday, give the first 10% of your income to your church. Put God to the test and watch what He does. If you are burdened by debt, I want you to focus on the debt-free principle. Your action step is to list out all your debts from smallest to largest and make a commitment to start the debt snowball method. Choose your one lesson and then take one small, concrete action this week to put that principle into practice. Write down in the comments which lesson you are choosing to work on. I want to cheer you on. These are the proven money lessons from the Word of God. They are more reliable than any stock market prediction, more valuable than any get-rich-quick scheme, and more powerful than any economic forecast. They are the keys to building a financial life of peace, purpose, and prosperity. They are the keys to your financial breakthrough. Go in grace and be blessed to be a blessing.